Did you know that in 1947, the US president asked Americans not to eat turkey on Thanksgiving Day? So this week I was planning to recreate the Thanksgiving dinner that President Truman ate in 1946, purely because he was dieting at the time, and I thought it would be interesting to see what a presidential diet Thanksgiving dinner tastes like. But not only did it look remarkably like a normal Thanksgiving dinner on closer inspection, I mean at least to an Englishman, but I actually found something much more interesting from the next year in 1947, when he asked all Americans to not eat turkey on Thanksgiving Day. So while we unpack why he did this and what the hell happened, I'm going to recreate the dinner that he had instead, starting with mushroom soup. I don't have the White House recipe for mushroom soup, so this is just another recipe I found from the 1940s. So we're starting with our mushroom soup by sauteing a pound of mushrooms in butter. So why did the 33rd American president ask Americans to go without turkey on Thanksgiving? In 1947, although it had been a couple of years since World War II ended, Europe was still experiencing mass food shortages and famine in some areas. To put it into context, here in the UK, rationing that began during World War II didn't end until 1954. And America was trying to be a good friend, with the American government asking for people to conserve more food so it could be sent to Europe. Truman himself actually said, "If the peace should be lost because we failed to share our food with hungry people, there would be no more tragic example in all of history of a peace needlessly lost." So as part of this, President Truman came up with a plan for Americans to follow. And on October 5th, 1947, Truman led a radio address to the American people where he asked them to join him in voluntary rationing, all in order to support Europe. So the guidance for all Americans was 1 less piece of bread each day, no red meat on Tuesdays, and crucially for Thanksgiving, no eggs or poultry on Thursdays. So now we've sauteed these, I'm going to pour some stock in. And you can probably guess what happened, because that year, Thanksgiving fell on a Thursday. So asking Americans to give up eggs and poultry on Thursdays created a huge dilemma. This meant no turkey as the centerpiece, also no eggs meant no pumpkin pie. So Truman's act of solidarity with Europe essentially asked Americans to forego their seasonal food customs. And as you can imagine, it didn't go down very well. Gonna let that simmer. The next half of the recipe asks us to essentially make a roux between equal parts flour and butter and then milk. Start adding in some milk, cold, which is what you're not supposed to do, but I haven't heated it up. Oh yeah, that's awful. The New York Times actually put together a timeline of all notable responses to the rationing. On the 9th of October, restaurants reported putting eggs back onto the menu after diners started walking out in disgust. What's wrong with you? Why are you beeping? Stop it! Although there was apparently a rise in restaurants using other cuts like tripe and offal, there are apparently reports of housewives in Vermont and Michigan crossing the border into Canada to get red meat, like pork and beef. And on 5th of November, the White House apparently received a consignment of live hens that had been sent to them by a disgruntled farm worker in protest about the poultryless Thursdays. So basically, by the time Thanksgiving came round, even the people who'd been supportive of the scheme had completely gone off the idea of giving up their Thanksgiving turkey. So having simmered and blended our soup, we're now good to eat. Tastes like flavourless mushroom gunk. I'm going to add in some salt, because that wasn't allowed in the recipe. It's basically like a very gloopy cream of mushroom soup. For my taste, I want to add in some truffle or some porcini paste or something to get up that umami flavour. Umami. But fairly decent. So the next stage of Truman's Thanksgiving dinner was turkey. And you might be wondering, given this entire story about the president asking people not to eat turkey on Thanksgiving, why the hell was he eating turkey? Because he ate it the night before instead. So in addition to turkey, the presidential menu clearly states that it was turkey with stuffing. So I'm going to make some stuffing. Again, I've got no record of what kind of stuffing he ate, so I'm just starting with another period-appropriate recipe I found from the 1940s. It starts with sausage meat, including the little paper. I'm also going to add some breadcrumbs, pre-bought because I don't have any bread in the house. Now I'm going to chop some parsley. I'm not gonna lie, it sounds like a pretty marginal victory for Truman. I understand he couldn't be seen as stuffing his face on Thanksgiving Day a whole month after asking Americans to conserve food for Europe, but given the whole scheme was around food conservation, it feels like having it the night before instead kind of negates the impact of the gesture. Though I do concede that after years of wartime austerity, you probably deserve a turkey dinner. Mega parsley, gonna crumble in some chestnuts. Are these in date? Yeah, I should have checked that before. It's also worth saying that America had only just recovered from a political storm around Thanksgiving that went back almost a decade. So before Thanksgiving in 1939, the American people had mostly adhered to Abraham Lincoln's 1863 proclamation and dutifully marked Thanksgiving on the last Thursday of November. However, in 1939, President Roosevelt attempted to shift the date by a week to the 4th Thursday. which in 1939 meant shifting the date from November the 30th as the last Thursday to November the 23rd as the fourth in the month. It turned into a bit of a political disaster. There were 32 states that accepted the change and 16 that rejected it. So for 2 whole years, you basically had the country divided and celebrating Thanksgiving a week apart. Gonna zest in a lemon. And it wasn't until 1941 that President Roosevelt brought an end to the disagreement. So cut back to 1947, Truman probably realized that after a decade or so of faffing around with Thanksgiving, asking people to give up their turkey was just a bit of a step too far. And he ultimately made an executive decision to not eat turkey on Thanksgiving Day, so he stuck to his principles. However, he did then eat turkey the night before. Okay, gonna crack an egg in, largely to bind the breadcrumbs. Gonna add in salt, pepper, and a little grating of nutmeg. So we've got our stuffing, gonna put this in the oven. It's a school night in London, and I have in front of me what probably passes for me as a full Thanksgiving dinner, but I'm guessing most Americans are gonna lay into me about. Gotta have the gravy. There is obviously the American tradition about pardoning turkeys on Thanksgiving from presidents, isn't there? Feels like Truman could have taken advantage of that himself, but there we go. It's roast turkey. Roast turkey is tasty. Trying the stuffing now. I don't know why I'm surprised. I'm having a roast dinner on a Monday night. It's obscene, but it's also glorious. Let's try the braised celery. I've never tried braised celery before, and it tastes exactly like what you'd imagine it to taste like. Mashed potatoes, same, buttered. I forgot the buttered peas!
Did you?
Yeah. It's alright. You're intelligent people, you know what buttered peas taste like.
I don't think they could have made that plate look any bleaker.
Thank you, again, for your support. I know I've made a little bit of fun about President Truman trying to get around poultry-free Thanksgiving by just eating it the night before instead. I don't mean to make fun. I genuinely think it's a brilliant thing that he tried to get Americans to conserve food to help out their neighbours. So yeah, I might make fun about him getting around poultry-free Thursdays by having it the night before instead, but I'm not mad at the guy. We're eating turkey for a week. Thanks so much for watching. Do consider subscribing for more, and if there's anything else you'd like to see me recreate from food history, then let me know in the comments.